The year was 2084. After some world wars, nuclear wars, race wars, and cola wars, societies have turned into disgusting meat grinders stripped of any humanity. No purpose in this new age, only hunger and instinct. Unlike Stella, humanity has not gotten its groove back. There is, however, one hope. His name, Disco the Barbarian. A mysterious silent figure glimmered with a shiny disco ball on his head, spunked and funked with a 70s style disco getup. This humanoid of some sort was a sensation. Nobody knows who he is or where he's from, but he is able to survive in a world without meaning. Disco the Barbarian. The story starts on a beautiful sunny day over a little slum. The once glim and glitter people of Folksville are now in a dim and bitter state. One of the few somewhat cohesive societies in the New World, everyone had two functions: plant and make sure no one kills. There were a few faces Disco would gander and recognize. An old humble man who waved at Disco, the couple who told everyone they were married, even if there was no wedding, and an orphan who always grew more food than everyone else. Mattresses were set up all around, and Disco was taking a nap. Many were sleeping as dreams were one of the few escapisms in the end of history. However, many sheep were slaughtered as the loud engine of a jeep woke the people. The blistering brash presence of the guests were quite the sight for the peasants. They stared at the trio. Two young men and a young woman covered in top of the line technology. It was the most technology some of these people have seen. As the trio was anal as the trio was as the trio was analyzing the slum and people, a young woman approached gently. Big brown almond eyes, creamy olive skin, unkempt frizzy hair. Miss Caker was born by the harsh hurricanes of 61. Her family traveled city to city looking for food and medical supplies. Few years back, as a teenager, she saw her mother slowly mutate into something nobody can describe. Through a trip to the rusty ranches of Kentucky, some sort of substance from a secret military base must have contaminated the family. For some reason, the mother was the only one who was deeply affected. Her bones have totally changed rhythm. Her body was morphing into something the family couldn't understand. One morning, the rest of the Caker clan woke up to see Mother Caker turn into literal gum. Her clothes were spattered on the floor. Her new body was moving with very gravy like friction. Keely and her brother wished they couldn't believe such a thing, but in this post nuclear world, surreal, grotesque transformations were nothing new to the modern eye. The woman who sang to them as little children was now just a blob without thought. She hopes there's no thought inside the pitiful form. It would be a fate worse than death. Her father, a man who was raised to adapt, finally broke as he kept his wary hands on the creature. As he was sobbing, the blob stopped moving, altering into pure liquid. The middle aged man stood for hours, but eventually life went on and the Caker clan trailed to their next destination. However, in the middle of the search for a livable area, the father stopped and fell. He passed out, but his passed out body quickly fried on the stove hot trail. His children quickly tried to help, but there were no heartbeats. They buried him. They buried him and continued their way. The post nuclear Even Stevens eventually stumbled upon among a community. Slim and frail, she and her brother came to the slum to skim the perks of a cohesive society. Folksville wasn't glamorous. In fact, it was quite depressing. But if it meant survival, it meant survival. The pair were allowed to plant and live within their means. Miss Caker would forever be grateful for the sacrifice of her parents to help her find this community. As the trio glanced and analyzed the people, did I already? I think I already fucking wrote that. God, this is horrible. A curious spark climbed in her. Two of them had laser guns. That made the people reluctant to speak as they assumed that these guests were more advanced. Oh God. The only one who didn't have any fear was Keeley, who gently walked over to the big but sophisticated looking man. Clean cut and well fed, the young man looked godly to her. Regardless if they bring salvation or damnation, they are on a different level. She was amused and amazed at this technology. Perhaps in another timeline she could have been a scientist or a programmer. Their designs were so aesthetically pleasing. The new world lacked beauty and craft. There was no way to express yourself. Seeing the hot, slick red on their designs was a form of expression, passion. Personally, she thought purple would look cuter and less vulgar, but seeing some color in a dim world, that was fascinating. She gently walked towards the crew, and everybody stood still. While noticing everyone looking at her, she knew she couldn't stop. For once, she felt big, finally being allowed to not feel like a prop. Uncertain if this was going to be a flower in the gun moment or not, she just wanted to communicate. The women folly of humanity can be rooted in lack of communication. Communication is key. She just wants to talk to them. Not a confident speaker, in fact, the opposite. She tried to don what she was about to say to the men of the future. Hello, she thought. She she'll just humbly welcome them, licking her dry cracked lips trying to be clear. As she attempted to say hello, her eyes opened at a bold, vibrating light. The charging colors dazzled her eye. The charging colors dazzled her eyes. It was simply groovy. It's like she could see her entire life flash from being born in an abandoned church to planting in a slum. What was it all for? She thought, right before her head exploded with a gushing red splatter onto the crowd. The screams of townies amped up. Oh fuck, look at that bitch go. Chuckling and chattering, the trio expressed vulgar views towards their subjects. The charge rate seems a tad slow, said the sole female of the crew. Yeah, that sucks, but look at the fuckers go. The fit man and woman started spraying their lasers of death at the townspeople. Side by side, the running, screaming people were being slaughtered. Their bodies were unrecognizable, now appearing as just jelly on a hot, burning surface. The fatter foe of the trio was a fan of ancient history. He did not care for guns of any sort. Kills should be up close to the victim. See the soul drain from the silver eyes, he thought. His disturbing views didn't bother the other two, as this was a game to them. More and more bodies kept flying and flopping as the massacre guzzled the guts of the prey. The lucky people didn't have to sleep in slums and these lucky people didn't have to sleep in slums and live off of possums and pee. They had the most advanced technology. One of their hobbies is testing out new weapons and tech on the less lucky. Slum to slum, the fortunate young people would sometimes volunteer to test the equipment on the defenseless for training. Some secret societies, organizations, dynasties, etc., are hungrier than others. They sometimes fight. The other people are simply just target practice. You took my kill. Snooze, you lose, the freckled faced woman sneered. God, this is fucking terrible. She was disgusted how unesthetic the post nuclear village looked. Ah, these people, they're all so demoralized, she said seconds before using her laser gun to melt the flesh of children trying to run. As the mashing and bashing kept going, our favorite post-nuclear barbarian was slowly waking up. Unfortunately, Disco's a very heavy sleeper. The disco ball stays on his head even when he sleeps. The man or monster took a pinch and peek at the chaotic scenery. Who would attack the people Disco came to be fascinated by? Screams were bouncing left and right as the massacre continued. Oh fuck, look how look how that dude's head goes, barked the big fat bruiser. His slimmer companion took note of something in the air. Disco, the barbarian, the grooviest of post-nuclear dudes, has sprung and flung towards the foes. Slamming into the man with the gun, Disco made his mark. Oh shit, what is this? Little did they know that they were in the presence of Disco, the barbarian, the grooviest post-nuclear dude. Without speaking, our disco ball-headed freak decided, no, decked the douchebag in his stupid douchebag face. Subconsciously skilled at acrobatics and every form of fighting, Disco was the first real competitor. The feminine Widowmaker drew fire at Disco's head, only for the only for the lasers to reflect. Nothing breaks Disco the Barbarian's disco ball head, not even a nuke or the Duke. Um, the laser reflected onto the man's the laser reflected onto the man trying to get back from being knocked out. His head burst like a grapefruit in orbit. John, cried the woman. Her mourning was quick as she vulgarly started blasting away. Disco, the barbarian, the grooviest post-nuclear dude. No, she started blasting away at Disco the barbarian, the grooviest post-nuclear dude. Die, asshole. Agility skills at full force. Disco kept quickly dodging the vengeful lasers. Disco, the barbarian, the grooviest post-nuclear dude, unleashed the most skilled tactical combat. He grabbed her gun. What the fuck? She squeaked. Disco knocked her to the curb and dashed towards her. The big enemy emerged from gazing at the spectacle and swiped at Disco. Disco dodged and scattered left to right, trying to understand this dude. He had something the other two lacked. Sprinting at full force, Disco, the barbarian, the grooviest post-nuclear dude, leaped head first. The oaf backed his shoulders and aimed his laser sword at Disco's head, only for it to have no effect. Getting back up, he felt humbled that this shellhead was a worthy opponent. I could see I can see your head cannot be broken, but what about your bones? As he attempted to carve into Disco's body. As Disco, the barbarian, the grooviest post-nuclear dude, took offense, the oaf grabbed the recovering female comrade and chucked her at Disco. Shocked at such betrayal, his thinking was off and he jumped off her body to go backwards. With specific skill, Disco dazzled the perfect landing. A 10 out of 10 landing. The bird's bloody body was picked up by the oaf. She asked why he did that, and the oaf gave her a stare colder than the final layer of hell. Hedonistic slut. What? Watching you two lovebirds treating this like a game, you lack passion. Disco was taking a breath within his dome head while watching the scene. Watching you two giggling like fucking brats. This is a war. Show some passion. The woman kept sobbing until the oaf saw an opportunity. Disco dashed at full force, punching and kicking. The large man was using his injured comrade as a human shield. As Disco leaped with a headbutt, his dome came into contact with the betrayed woman's face, shattering it into a million pieces. Don't be surprised, parasite. You may be a good fighter, but don't be puzzled by choices. Sacrifices make society strong. This society lacked sacrifice. It lacked faith. It lacked faith. It lacked passion. It shall be punished by the. The loudmouth's words were no more as Disco jumped behind him and quickly twisted his fat neck. With slapstick and skill, the terrible trio has been defeated. The slum of Folksville was saved, not just the people. Oh, no, the slum of Folksville was saved, just not the people. The old man was decapitated, the newlyweds were mutilated, and the orphan was cremated. Disco was the only survivor. Everyone is dead, but Disco isn't. Disco continues to trail along in this sad, sad, broken world. The end. What a fucking terrible story.